So is it okay if we start?
Yes, please. The recording started. Yep, we can start.
I can't see you.
All right, great. So I sent along an agenda with some highlights. We'll talk about the energy performance contract first. For the SED submission set, I believe Jim and Terry have provided comments. They're in the queue at State Ed, and State Ed's going through the review process to respond, and it's anticipated that shortly we will have approval on that. And Jim, if there's nothing else to add, I think that's where we're at with the EPC review from State Ed, correct?
Correct. I talked to the reviewer the other day. It sounds like though he's going to have a few other comments coming this way in the next week or so. Okay.
And the last bullet points on here, we'll just leave on. I think Terry, you had provided a draft schedule showing the first of the year start, Riccardi boiler plant in the summer, the process for the RFP and financing. It's noted there, and that'll commence. I think we're ready to go once we have State Ed approval. And then the last part is there has been, and if we need to continue, there's coordination between the capital project and the EPC that Jim, you're doing direct with Terry, or we have done already, but we'll continue to fine tune that as needed.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I think those are the highlights on the EPC, unless anyone wants to add anything.
That's good.
Okay. Moving on. Capital Alley projects for upcoming 1/21/22. Randy has shared some floor plan information with you, Jim. You're looking at it. It's really you have the concept. It's really now taking the next steps to develop some stuff. We could probably do it offline, but I'll get to the point of bullet points of next steps and timelines of when we want to start bringing this whole into the district. Anything else to add from the information that you have?
No, I think that characterizes it well.
Okay, and ultimately the goal needs to be the work has to be completed, billed, et cetera, by end of June of 22. Capital project planning, the design highlights right now is the CD level documents continue to be worked on. Some stuff on your end, Jim, some front end stuff on our end. If you need to do any field investigative work, you can continue to do so. One of the big last components here is Quest Environmental Consultant. They're getting close. It should be toward the end of this week. If not this week, next week, Larry will provide you with drawing specs and reports. That gets merged into the SED set, goes to State Ed. We'll continue to evaluate and see how that integrates with the actual architectural mechanical work that the project's going to complete. Just again to catch things before we go out to bid. Those are really
there'll be some post SED submission coordination with the
any updates on Morse or Cahill that you want to share for the SHPO for Cahill?
No, that's still in process, like you've characterized it there. Not anticipating any issues, variances. Also, something that we're working with SED on.
Okay, great. Big picture highlights. Targeting still end of October to go to State Ed. They were last I checked, and it's been a couple of weeks, or 6 to 8 weeks. Are you still seeing that on your end?
I actually checked it today. Right now, both architectural and engineering say 4 to 6.
4 to 6, okay.
But that's going to change, remember? So
sure, yeah, we know the fluid. Well, ultimately, that still puts us on track for bidding in the early winter of 22 for a spring start, and then closing out in the fall of 23.
Mike, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
So when do we start? When's the phasing when we're going to start looking at scheduling, like the phase in and?
We'll do that once we get into the queue with State Ed,
okay.
So they can begin that process, and then we'll do a State Ed schedule that shows the highlights, but then the bid schedule gets expanded a bit more to include some specifics with Randy and again the rest of the district team, and that all gets done between State Ed and when we actually get approval in January. So over the
Okay.
course of the next few months, we'll roll up the sleeves and really start looking at that.
Got it. Because if there's a lot of movement happening over the summer, you know, the sooner we get with Randy and Mike, the better. Thank you.
Okay. Project budget, again, we're on track. We look to integrate any protective alternates into the final bid set to go out to bid. And again, we'll do that as a group. Just again, to protect the budget and to see what other opportunities may exist for some extra work or other. Project awareness, we continue to talk to contractors, but once we get a little bit closer, that's when we'll get a full steam, when we know it's the range of end of January, beginning of February, those timeframes to make everyone aware. There's some good interest out there right now, so that's positive for next year. Anything else, Jim, on the capital project to talk about at the moment?
No, I just will follow up with Randy on a question, but I can do that offline after.
Okay.
Can I ask, this is Jim Mooney, just the variances that are needed at Morse or and the concessions? What, so in other words,
Yes.
I mean, I understand the variance because it's technically, you know, it's a platform. But what are the concessions that we would be looking at?
So looking at adding a couple of cross corridor doors between so the corridor that runs down between both, you got the gym on one side and you got the cafeteria on the other, adding some doors that go across there to help compartmentalize the building a little bit.
And that's fire code?
It would be part of the fire code to make a barrier, kind of separating that part of the building from the rest. Because what's happening is this is a building that's just one big giant fire area, and not to get into the weeds on any of it. Basically, by today's code, you'd have to compartmentalize it into smaller pieces. So this concession is to try to at least break off that piece of the building. Normally, if it was another type of addition where you didn't need a big opening for a proscenium, opening into the stage from the stage side into the gym, you would put a firewall there to separate it, and this wouldn't even be really a conversation. But that doesn't work well because you got to have the stage opening, and you can't put a big fire shutter. They don't even make them that big to put across there. So that's where this comes from.
Okay, and then the other question I had, I've noticed myself that building materials have come down. So are things being reconsidered, or are we still, I know you had a contingency fund there, but does that open up for other things or no?
So there, at the moment, there's certainly still a lot of volatility out there and availability of materials, which will, ebb and flow with some of the cost escalation. But down the road, that's something we'll have to reevaluate as the project goes through, if there's available funds for other scope that was in the nature of this project.
Okay, thank you.
And
Jim, I know a lot, the prices might have came down on some stuff, but all the contractors here in Saugerties are having a hard time just getting a lot of the basic materials like pipe and EMT and conduit.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, we're seeing that that's pretty widespread actually, Randy. So yeah, it's definitely a common thread.
So
finding laborers too.
Right. So before we go out to bid, there'll be one, a last check of the market and the value in the documents, just so there were no surprises, so we can react accordingly. Yes, for example, the wood has crested and started to come down. We won't go back to, the trends are not showing going back to values a couple of years ago. I think the market's stabilizing itself. So you have that factor. And yeah, you're right, procurement. We keep getting the every other day updates on doors being 20 weeks versus 10 weeks, those kind of things. That again, that gets integrated into the schedule, but those are all things to really look out for at this point. other questions on the capital project? Jane, anything on your end?
No,
Okay. Kirk, Jim, Bob, anything else? Randy?
No.
I'll have some SED paperwork just to give you a heads up. That'll be coming your way soon, so some signatures will be required.
lots of signatures.
I'll send it through Jane, but just to give you a heads up while we're talking.
All right, just looking ahead, there's an October board meeting next, the 12th at Morse.
Mhm.
I had to note that, Jim and I would not be at this one. We'll go every other one. Just want to make sure that's still the case.
Yeah, you'll be presenting at the November one.
Correct.
We have the luxury of our audit report at the October one.
Okay, good.
It'll be exciting. Come on.
And the one in November, I got at Mount Marion.
Yes.
Still the case. Okay, great. And obviously beforehand, we'll do a PowerPoint presentation to send to everyone. And next facilities meeting is the Wednesday before, which is the 3rd of November.
Mhm.
Any comments from the team? Anything else, at least for this group, that we didn't talk about or should be thinking about?
Mike, when would be a time where we would look at the 5-year plan for any type of auxiliary work in case stuff comes in under?
I think the best thing, and Jim, not to speak for you, I think let's get in the queue with state ed, and then over, I'll say November, December, let's get together with the district and revisit that. I think that's the right time. And then, because that gives us time to put those items into the bid documents.
Okay, great.
And, depending on where things stand too at bid day, if at the end of that, I'll call it phase of the project, there's extra money, well, not extra, but unencumbered funds, those funds could be rolled forward to do another project if so desired.
Cool. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
I think that's it for our group.
Awesome. Great.
Good job, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, everybody. Be
Take
safe.
care.
All right. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
well.
Bye.